Welcome to the new season of the Live Your Spa Life show. The Spa in Spa Life stands for Seek Power Always, that divine power within you to do what you're here to do. The theme for this season is Freedom Fighter. Amazing people like you share ways to ensure your freedom physically, financially, spiritually, and in your relationships to create a world-class life. In these times of uncertainty, it's time for you to move past the distractions and start trusting yourself more through your God-given knowingness. No one truly knows better what's best for you than you. In this season, you'll have plenty of examples of people choosing their best life and giving a voice of freedom to those who are also looking to have their best life. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us and being part of the Live Your Spa Life conversation. With us today is Cheryl Osborn, who founded Casco Contractors in 2000 and has grown it into one of Orange County's top women-owned businesses. What started as an idea at her kitchen table has transformed into one of the most successful tenant improvement companies in Southern California. Over the past 20 years in Southern California, she has completed more than 5,000 jobs. You heard me, 5,000 jobs, developed the Countdown to Zero program, incentivizing the Zero Punch projects, and achieving over $400 million in revenue, making her a leader in a male-dominated industry. Cheryl is an active philanthropic member in the community as a board for Laura's House and Girls Inc., and spearheads Casco's annual charity fundraiser, benefiting Make-A-Wish. In her spare time, Cheryl enjoys traveling, cooking, and spending time with her daughters, Cassidy and Riley. Cheryl, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Diane. It's so great to be here.
Well, it's awesome to have you here. You and I just are coming off of speaking at the Epiphany event, benefiting Generating Hope. And so it's just so great to see how much involvement you have in the community. And we're going to circle back around about your talk because I think that'll be an amazing thing. So that is so cool. But one of the things I would like to start out with is, I get asked this all the time as a retired police officer that, I was the only woman on my squad for many years. And when people see that there is, a woman who's in a male-dominated industry, and especially doing really well in that, what led you into the whole construction industry in the first place?
Sure. It's actually one of my favorite stories to tell because I think it's a great way to look at raising children. So I was supposed to be a boy. So I was born, not to date myself, but I was born before there were ultrasounds, and everything was like, oh, you're carrying just like a boy. This is finally your boy. I have an older sister, and I was the last person to retain my maiden name, the last living wear, I guess. And so of course, when I came out, I was not a boy. And although I know my father was probably disappointed, he kind of chose to raise me and my sister as well. But I think I sort of did it a little bit more, just raise us without gender barriers. And so everything was like, hey, you can do this. There's no like, that's for a guy or that's for a girl. It was always like, hey, your oil light's on in your car. He throws me a set of coveralls. Or, like I grew up racing dirt bikes. I grew up doing all those things. But I always say that I'm male enough to, be able to swing a hammer with the best of them, but I'm always worried about breaking a nail.
You know what? I'm with you on that because it reminds me when I used to go to certain calls, right? And you're getting ready to, knock on the door, and maybe there's an entry, and you got a team set up, and my squad would joke with me, okay, we're all set. Diane, you got your lipstick on, and go, oh hell yeah, for those media things that might come up, right?
You can have a mixture of, you don't have to be completely masculine to do something that's considered in a masculine industry. And I think that's a big misnomer for people because honestly, I love being feminine in a mask. I mean, I still wear pumps to job sites. My safety director doesn't love that, but it's something that I can't break the habit. So yeah, it's I always say women that build in pencil skirts and pumps do a better job.
I love that. I love it. And I like the mix of that, right? You don't have to, act male to, step in. And I think a lot of times having a female perspective on jobs, and how you communicate things, you can really, lead a really a benefit to that. And I don't know if you've noticed that in different ways about how you approach and conversations that you have, that maybe look at things from a perspective that some of your male counterparts haven't considered. Have you seen that at all?
Absolutely. So I always say my big famous line was always explain this to me like I'm a preschooler. And I think a lot of times with men, and listen, this is not about male bashing or anything.
We love men.
Yeah, we love men. I love men. So, it's all about pointing out the differences in how we interact in certain situations. And so I feel like women have the tendency to be a little bit more collaborative. They're a little bit less ego driven. I mean, I'm always about trying to solve the problem versus trying to prove how much I know. And so when you show up, sometimes like there's that need to kind of prove that you're the best or whatever. But I feel like the approach of just kind of easing into it and letting everyone talk, finally at the end of the conversation, they really realize that you really do know what you're talking about. And you get there a little bit easier and a little quicker when you collaborate that way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that focus on like, hey, how can we all work together here? We're all, trying to get to the same solution. We may have a different approach to it, but the more we kind of talk about it and get to it versus someone just saying, because I said so, right? That can make a difference, and that can really, elevate your people and the things that you're doing around you. So I love that. I think that is so great. So what's your favorite part of what you do?
So what I love about what I do, so I'm a tenant improvement contractor. So basically my construction mostly consists of existing buildings where we go in and we do anywhere from, very small remodels, adding conference rooms, to completely reskinning an entire 3-story building. But usually the property is already there. And I build for the tenant that's going to occupy the building, whether it's the owner of the building or somebody that's being leased to. So we really get to know, we do design build a lot, and we really get to know what these people do. So we've built spaces for people that cure cancer. So I don't cure cancer, but I can build you a space where you can cure cancer. And we really get to get involved in how people in all different industries operate: labs, medical facilities, lawyers' offices, philanthropic organizations. And you, because you have to build them a space that works for them, you really kind of understand what they're doing and what their purpose is. And it's really neat to be able to really dive deep into what people do. I love it. I'm so curious about, how do you operate? How do you work? And that kind of plays out with the space that we are able to deliver for them.
Yeah. I love that distinction of really getting to know what is meant for the space and what works for the person and how they interact. I have a client that I've consulted with for years, and she's done like several rehabs of her building. She has a large property management company, and they even moved buildings at one time. She even built a new building at one time, trying to get to how she can integrate all the different aspects of her business. And I think it's now taken like 3 iterations to kind of figure that out. And I think that if maybe the contractor asked her more about some deeper questions, right, then she would have been closer to the space that she worked with. So I think looking at that from the beginning can save a lot of headaches.
Yeah, life is all about questions. I've learned that. Ask as many I just ask questions constantly, because again, if I'm building a space for someone to cure cancer and they can't plug in their computer or they can't plug in their lab equipment, then it's useless. So you really have to be able to, get in how they work is really important. And I love meeting people. I love meeting all different kinds of people with different backgrounds, different educations. Yeah, people are pretty impressive.
Yeah, so great. Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about your relationship to fear. And one of the things that I really love is that you don't really necessarily operate from fear. You look at it in terms of like uncharted territory and about excitement. And I think that this is really an important thing for people to really look at, is because sometimes fear will stop people, right? They'll get in their tracks and they'll get stuck in certain things. And in order to be successful, you got to have strategies or ways that you do that. So when you are, confronted with, either uncharted territory or things that are out of alignment, or people on your team, how do you move through those?
Well, I think the one thing and I don't know if it's genetic or I don't know if it's just a learned behavior, but I do not have a fear of failure. I have failed so many times. I mean, I literally could pave a road from here to Mexico on how many times I failed, because I'm really not afraid to try different things. And I think that pretty much if you think about the fear or the fear of failure, it's really just a learning experience, right? So trying something and being open to trying something and then pivoting when you get when your intuition tells you that it's not working. And I think that's the most important part with fear is I don't think it's the actual jumping in and doing something that should be fearful. It's when you understand that it's not working and really being able to pivot or pull back and say, what isn't working and what could I do better? It becomes a success. So, I mean, every success, what do they say? Every success is actually a failure that ended up working out, right? Like it's
Right.
just, you just get to the point where I don't know if it is genetic because I'm just not afraid. I'm not
Yeah.
afraid.
So good.
I think for people that are afraid, I think they really have to analyze what exactly is behind that fear. What is it exactly that you are afraid of? Because quite often it's really things that don't matter, that are or really aren't realistic.
Right, right. Yeah, it's funny because they say, fears are actually something that's really far away from you. And then when you get up close to it, it's not what you thought it was.
Yeah.
And so if you just explore it from the very beginning and you actually look at it and you start going, okay, yes, it's here, but what do I do about that? How do I operate through it? And what happens, with that? And one of the favorite things I heard someone say is that, the road to success and failure, they're not different roads. So they're the same road,
Mhm.
right? And so if you are going through failures or fears or things like that, you just haven't reached that success yet, but you're on the right path. You just have to try different things out. So I love that you just explore things. You're not afraid of them. You take those risks, and that allows you to, bounce ahead on some things. So I think that's awesome.
Thank you. And it's really important to look at indicators when you are trying something that maybe, because I always say, like, if you're not nervous, then it doesn't mean enough to you. If you're not, a little bit afraid of anything you're doing, if you're not a little bit, just apprehensive, but really looking for those indicators for what isn't isn't going well and fixing them immediately. I think that's the biggest piece to not being afraid to fail.
Absolutely. So speaking of indicators, has there been some curveballs for you? Have there been some challenges, some things that you're like, wow, this kind of took me out a little bit and I had to kind of figure my way out of it?
Oh, all the time. One of my favorite stories is my very first project. So this was back in 2000, and I had my very first project. I only had one employee, and I went and I built their space, and I was super proud of myself. I was like, "Yeah, look at this!" And the owner of the company, he's like, "Cheryl, come here. I want to talk to you." And I'm like, "He's gonna tell me that he loves his space, and I did a super great job." And he sits at his desk and he puts a pencil on it, and it proceeds to roll like at the rate of a freight train, roll off his desk. And he goes, Cheryl, you built me a space that isn't level. And I literally looked at him and I was like, he's like, how am I supposed to work? I can't, like, this entire space isn't level. So what I ended up discovering is the building was actually sinking in towards the middle. It was built on clay. And so the columns were actually sinking. So innately the floor was not level. And I was like, he's like, I'm not going to accept the space. So I thought, wow, I'm a failure before I even got started. Like, because literally I had to go in, move all of his furniture out, rip all the carpet up, level the floor, put it all down. It was about $25,000 to do this because I had to do it on a weekend and not, disrupt him. And I thought, all right, I could either just cut my losses now and move on after one failed job, or I could continue. And then I said, well, wait a second. I become a floor leveling expert. And we have a building that's 5 stories and the entire building is sinking. So I went to the landlord and I pitched my floor leveling prowess. And I ended up doing $400,000 worth of floor leveling for the landlord over the course of about a year and a half. And I turned it into a success.
So great. I love that distinction because, things, come at us and when people go, well, how do you become an expert? Right? By doing things
And
over and
doing
over
it and
again.
failing, right? Succeeding and
Yes.
failing. Because if you really only succeed all the time, you don't know what could happen.
Right, right. And once you've experienced it, when other people come up against it, then you're like, oh, I've had this before. Like I know where to go with this and I know what to do about it. And that makes, such a big difference. I know one of the things you've talked about that's empowering to you is when people rally together for a cause or something that they're doing. I'd love for you to kind of share more about, when you also talked about being recognized by clients and things when you go out of your way. What are some examples of how you've gone out of your way for clients or customers?
So one of our core values, because I mean, obviously everyone knows company culture is one of the most important things. It's the biggest buzzword happening right now. What is your culture like? And one of our core values is the relentless pursuit of wow.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's funny how often I have to explain that to clients and employees. It's because to me, it's like knock their socks off. That's like that should be par for the course.
Yeah.
And so just anytime we can think ahead of something that a client may need or circumvent a problem that would really set them back, that's what I always think of. Like I want to wow you. I want you to walk in and I want you to be completely just blown away by the work that we did. And one of the spaces that I built, you mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, Make a Wish. It's one of the charities that's very close to my heart and very close to my company's heart. We do an event every year. We were actually fortunate enough to build their headquarters in Irvine.
Oh, wow.
And we did the design and the build. And this is where the children actually come in to the children who have life-threatening illnesses to be led into an area where they can be really honest about what wish they want granted. And this has never happened to me before, and it actually unfortunately hasn't happened since. But the CEO of Make-A-Wish, the architect, which was one of my employees, myself, and the landlord walked into this punch walk, and we all started crying because we had this blue road that led the children into the wish room. And the wish room was just decorated with just amazing things, calming things. And everybody was sitting there at the punch walk crying. And we all remarked that this is the only time we've ever turned over a space, and people started crying. So, I mean, it was just really listening to what their goals were for those children to walk in and be able to be honest about what their wish was.
Right. And I mean, that goes back to, your foundation of asking questions and then going, what's this space meant for? Like, what kind of, emotion do we want to have? What do we want them to experience and feel? And, I mean, just from what you've just described, it's like that, it seems like such a perfect area for people to just make wishes, right? And to feel seen and heard, and the pathway, like, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, it was a really great moment.
So great. So as a contractor, you get to see a lot of different before and afters in buildings. You get to see, different ways people choose. How's that affected your personal space? Have you remodeled 100 times? Have you how do you look at things differently? And how do you not walk into a building and go, I would do this different, I would do that different?
That is one of the curses of what I do. So, for example, in my personal home that my children grew up in, I remodeled the kitchen 3 times before I completely bladed the house and built a whole new house. And so the people that know me, they know that because construction change and transformation does not stress me out at all. It's actually super exciting to me. So in fact, I have 3 projects going on right now at my house, which is a different house. But anyway, I just feel like the people that know me, they always say, like, what project are you working on now, Cheryl? Because we've always known you to have a project. Once I finish one, I kind of have to move on to another. That's why I remodeled the kitchen 3 times. It's just in my blood, I think. I don't know. It's just, I love to see things transform. I love when things work really well. I'm not the kind of person that can show up to even a personal kitchen or something in my home and say, like, that's never worked. That counter's too high, or that is over there and I have to walk all the way. I just have to change it. And
Right.
So I think it's not always great for the pocketbook, but it is fun. It's my personal entertainment, I guess. But yeah, I do love to transform spaces.
That's so great. In the organizing world, they call that tolerations. Like, people will be like, oh, that blind never went up all the way. And they tolerate it for so much time. And what people don't realize is that over time, you have enough tolerations, that's going to affect your outlook in your space. It's going to be how you show up. It's going to affect other type things. You know, it's like when people walk across a rug that you always trip on, right? Because it didn't lay well
Right.
on the floor. So it's like those little things that we can make these shifts and changes in. And so keeping that in mind, what is, you know, we live differently in our kitchen or our bathroom, our office, like all these are different spaces with different intentions. What's your favorite room in your home and why?
Ooh, my favorite room is definitely my kitchen. I love to cook because I think cooking is also one of those. I don't bake because that's like following the rules, and if you mess up, you know, if you have the wrong amount of flour, like the whole thing's ruined. I love to cook, which is just basically chopping up a whole bunch of stuff, throwing it in, and like keeping adding or taking away, or that's my favorite thing. And so the kitchen that I live in now is very open, and it feels like I'm in the center of the house, so I feel really grounded. I named my house Gladys because I feel like she picked me, the woman that the house has a personality. It really does. It has a soul. And so when I'm in my kitchen, I feel like I can pretty much create anything and nobody will ever get mad. Like, I've failed a lot. I've made some things that I would never make again, or that nobody would eat. But also had a lot of successes. So it's a really easy way to sort of parlay that into life.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, just the exuberance of how you jump into whatever you do and you look at what are all the ingredients, you know, what are all the materials, like what are all the things I have here and what can I create with that? So that's part of that creative aspect that you have about yourself. And I love that. And as promised, we were going to circle back around to our epiphany talk. I would love for you to share. And I'm just going to put this up here. This is the pin that everyone was handed out. I am a pussy. And there was a lot of like laughter, a lot of like, huh? A lot of like, things that were going on. So I'd love for you to share how you started sharing about this, what this word means to you, and just the path of it.
Yeah. And again, the epiphany, the whole concept of epiphany is to talk about things. And I didn't have anything to do with starting it. It was Natalie and Lamar. They're fabulous. Yes. And that the Generate Hope cause is just so amazing for women in human trafficking. It's just such a great cause. But it's to talk about things that people don't like to talk about. So, last year, Natalie gave a talk about death, and, people were kind of shocked. So this year it was really funny. So if you can picture this, it was a room full of women, and there were about 4 men in there. And right before, during one of the breaks, one of the men said, "Oh, I see that you're a speaker. What are you speaking about?" And my eyes just got really, really wide, because I was like, why don't you just wait and see? Because I'm afraid it might come off wrong if I say it. So the title of my speech was "I Am a Pussy." And I think being a woman around a lot of men all the time, and really wanting to celebrate the inner goddess of women, and the beauty of our bodies, and what we're able to accomplish with our bodies, and how much our love of our bodies is really important to just basically our self-worth. And to me, it's like, it's a beautiful thing. Why can't we talk about our pussies, right? Like they're beautiful. They give us pleasure. We can have babies because of them. We can do all kinds of things. They make us feel attractive. And I feel like the word had been stolen from what I consider mostly men, who used it as a very derogatory term for someone that was weak or cowardly, or, that guy's a pussy, I'm like, why isn't that a good thing? Why don't we call a woman a pussy when she's radiant? Because she's empowering all of that female energy and the female goddess inside of her. Why don't we use that word as a powerful word, an empowering thing? And obviously it doesn't always go over well with certain people. In fact, this one woman came to me after my speech, and she said, I was rolling my eyes and seriously thinking, is this woman going to stand up there and talk about pussies the entire time? And this was when the wine came out, and she cheers me with her wine glass, and she said, "Here's to you, fellow female pussy." And I'm like, here's to you. It's just like, if we can just change the way the word is used, and we've done that before in words in society. I just feel like it should be an empowering, amazing word that talks about strength.
Right. And what I love about that is just sometimes when people hear the word, there's kind of like this shock factor, right? And that was all what Epiphany was about. It was about looking at things from a different perspective. And whether you use the word or not, you want to be able to embrace the intentionality between that, because there can be some subconscious, beliefs that, when you say, oh, you're a pussy, that's weak, that can be translated to how women look at themselves, right? And how
Exactly.
the self-esteem. And so, especially with us, helping women get off the street and helping them, get out of things that they probably don't even know how they got there, right? The decisions we've talked about, in human trafficking, where they get boyfriend and where someone pretends to love them and then turns that around and they go down a path that they never thought they would go. Well, that all gets tied into how we think about ourselves and how we believe about ourselves. So part of having this conversation and why, I'm so grateful that you are willing to talk about it is for women and girls to embrace all of who they are and not, put down or, think badly of any part of our being and who we are. And it's a way to empower them in such a huge way. And so, now that you've started kind of talking about this and sharing this, what have you noticed that has shifted with people just around your space that know that you are all about empowering women?
I think the word is definitely used more in my presence, and I laugh every time someone uses it. It's great. I think at the end of the day, the goal was to eliminate anything associated with shame about the female body, because there should be no shame about female bodies. So I notice, even when I'm talking about what my speech was about, women kind of perk up. Most women. Some women are still, they still maybe need a little bit of time for it, but women perk up and they go, well, yeah, you're right. Why don't I have my power? Why isn't that a source of power? And I think just shifting that and eliminating the shame. I mean, there's so many women that are victims of human trafficking, so many women that are victims of sexual abuse. I was actually a victim of sexual abuse in my childhood. And I feel like that if we continue to carry that shame, it's really hard to get better, to heal. And if we compartmentalize it and we don't talk about it, embrace it, or empower it, then it's really, really, really difficult to heal. And I think if women could embrace this, that have had bad things happen to them in their lives, I think it's a really great way to move forward and take back your power.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it's so important that, you've got communities that support you. And there's so many things where people are like, oh, you can't talk about that, right? And so anytime we make something a secret, anytime we can't actually have a discussion, you are actually shutting down your ability to talk about things. I mean, even with, my company with Spa Life, the SPA is seek power always, that power within you to do your bigger work. You have to trust that power and trust yourself and be able to honor that thing that is within us. So I think that is such an important thing that we have. And I know that people are going to want to stay in contact with you, Cheryl. How can they best do that?
Oh yeah, I'm super open. I love being, I have lots of people that contact me. There's lots of people I reach out to as well. So Cheryl@cascocontractors.com. My website is www.cascocontractors.com. And I mean, I even give out my personal cell phone number, 714-815-0092. You can call me anytime. I think it's really important to be available. I learned so much if people reach out to me, because I do a lot of speaking engagements, because I want to get out there, because when people contact me, I learn. I'm becoming a better person because of the people that are reaching out to me. So please feel free anytime, even if it's for a cup of coffee or just I don't know, anything.
I love it, Cheryl. Thank you for opening that up and for people to connect with you. And as you know, our theme for this season of the show are people that choose and create freedom in their life. So how are you creating freedom in your life?
I think just the concept of really having no boundaries. I mean, there's certain things I don't want to do, but there's nothing in my life that I feel like I can't do. And so making that distinction is really, I think the most important thing is you don't have to want to do everything, but I don't feel like there's any boundaries on me or my life so that I couldn't do something. Now, every once in a while, there's doubt. I'm not saying that I'm like always perfect, right? But I'm able to recognize that I do have doubt when something comes up that in my life that maybe would construct fear, and really understand that. And like I said before, really look at it, like, what is the true fear? One of my Christmas parties, I always do something at my Christmas party. And about 3 years ago, I actually performed a rap song very badly. Like, it was awful. It was horrifying. And I mean, I remember walking off the stage going, wow, that did not go like I planned it, because I had practiced it and practiced it.
It almost looks better in your head.
Yeah. Oh, it was so much better in the bathroom right before I went out on stage. And I have to say, I was like, oh my God, that was such a failure. And I laughed and laughed and laughed. And I had 3 women come up to me and say, I can't believe you put yourself out there like that. That was so amazing. I learned so much. And I'm like, wow. So see, even other people can learn from people's failures. So it was really, it was pretty fun.
I love that. I think it's so great. I think sometimes we take ourselves so seriously, and to be able to just step outside of that, it gives other people permission to do so as well. So I think that is so great. I love what you're up to. I so appreciate your success and how you share yourself and how you give back in the world. You are a gem, Cheryl. Thank you so much for being here.
You are a gem, Diane. Thank you so much for what you do.
You got it. Thank you. And for our listeners out there, share, get this out there, whether it's for yourself and you just something that maybe you've held back on, you felt fearful in something, and you know what, just do it anyway. Just, see it in front of you and just step out, because those risks, they allow you to learn, they allow you to grow. It gives other people permission to, think outside the box. And so just share it, get it out there, and do something different that gets you out of your comfort zone. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Bye.